Welcome to MISD Assessments Training on Test Accommodations for the 2018-19 school year, presented by the Mansfield ISD Department of Assessment, Accountability, and Analysis. This video is designed for campus testing coordinators in the Mansfield ISD, as well as other staff members who help supervise state assessments, by which they can initiate their state-mandated training for the 2018-19 school year. This video will last approximately 15 minutes and will cover the items listed on screen. 2018-19 features minimal changes from previous years. We'll focus on the supports that are typically most common on state assessments in MISD, and we'll cover some other fundamental issues when it comes to providing accommodations to students. During the 2018-19 school year, students may still take STAR in either paper or online format with designated supports. The online edition of STAR may also include one or more online embedded supports, and is now also available in Spanish for grades 3, 4, and 5. STAR Alternate 2 remains a hybrid assessment where students complete the test on paper, after which the CTC submits the data electronically via the Pearson website. TEA's accommodation webpage maintains the same URL with the subcategories of accessibility features and designated supports. A major change implemented in 2018-19 is the online source for accommodations information. To access policy documents, the user is redirected to the new online District and Campus Coordinator resources, a virtual notebook TEA now uses to house support content. MISD Assessment will continue to provide designated support documentation in PDF format via Google Drive. TEA retains the same overarching principles regarding classroom accommodations on STAR. Accommodations should be routine, effective, and independent. In other words, students should use the accommodations regularly and on their own, and there should be evidence that doing so improves learning and academic performance for the student. For purposes of state assessments, TEA stipulates that accommodation tools may not have internet access or photographic capability, and the agency issues the disclaimer that not every classroom accommodation will be allowable on state assessments. The determination of eligibility for designated supports is handled the same as last year. As in the past, other groups as determined by campus principal typically address emergency supports and/or extraordinary circumstances. Now let's look at the actual supports themselves. This frame categorizes supports based on the determination of eligibility, and it may require a longer look to understand everything. To the upper left are supports that are available to students who receive Special Ed, 504, or EL services, or who have an RTI plan. 3 of these supports require a disability or disorder, and 2 of those 3 may also be available to EL students. To the lower left are 2 supports available only to Special Ed or 504 students. To the upper right are the 3 embedded supports available only in the online edition of STAR to Special Ed, 504, and EL students. You'll notice spelling assistance listed twice on this frame because it can still be offered in its traditional form and as an embedded online support. Last, to the lower right are the 4 supports that require TEA approval, all of which have their own specific eligibility requirements. As mentioned earlier, TEA's new District and Campus Coordinator resources include a link to documentation related to each support. These documents can also be found in PDF format in MISD Assessment's Google Drive public folder. Each document includes the 6 subheadings listed on the left side of this frame. When examining these documents, it's important to look at examples, particularly on math manipulatives, calculation aids, supplemental aids, dictionaries, and spelling assistance. For those supports, TEA has stipulated that only the items described on the document may be used. TEA also continues to publish guidelines for the content and language supports available embedded in STAR Online. Content and language supports include multiple tools depending on the grade and subject. So these guidelines offer details about the features students will find in the online interface. Now we turn our attention to some designated supports that tend to be used more commonly in Mansfield ISD. The first of these is transcribing, consisting of two types: basic transcribing, which is a local decision, and complex transcribing, which requires TEA approval. This frame outlines the examples from the policy document for each support. As in years past, the only tests on which complex transcribing would be delivered are Grade 4 and 7 Writing and English 1 and 2 EOC. And transcribing is only considered complex if the student dictates his or her composition directly to a staff member. Complex transcribing also requires the student to dictate capitalization and punctuation. All other transcribing is considered basic. In MISD, most students who receive transcribing use the basic approach. If a student needs transcribing of a writing or English composition, the typical approach uses word processing software on a computer that has had spell check, autocomplete, and internet connectivity disabled. If your campus has any students receiving basic transcribing on a paper test, be sure to check the Basic Transcribing Policy Document, Special Instructions, Item 8, for the specific verbiage to include on the answer document. This frame outlines the items that may and may not be read to the student in an oral administration, based on the assessment section of the TEA policy document. Oral administration is allowed in its traditional form, where an adult reads all or part of the allowable items to the student, or online using the text-to-speech option. If a given student receives oral administration according to the IEP, 504, LPAC, or RTI plan, support can be delivered through either method. It's not necessary to document the specific method in the student's plan, although it is allowable. New for 2018-19, students taking Grade 4 and 7 Writing or English 1 and 2 EOC may now have revising passages, test questions, and answer choices read aloud through both methods: STAR Online with text-to-speech or STAR Paper with oral administration. Remember, this applies only to revising, not to editing. Also, remember that you may never read a reading selection or passage to a student. For any test administrator who will deliver oral administration of STAR, he or she must be aware of the additional responsibilities involved. These include agreeing and adhering to TEA's requirements regarding confidentiality of secure content on the test administrator oath, and familiarity with the STAR Oral Administration Guidelines, which are housed in a separate book from the Test Administrator Manual. Next, we look at supplemental aids. TEA has revised the guidance presentation on allowable supplemental aids, and this frame shows two examples from that presentation: a mnemonic device and a fractions chart. Both examples shown here illustrate the main characteristic of allowable supplemental aids. They should include nothing explicit related to the academic content. TEA's philosophy is that there is a line between support and advantage, and labels, keywords, highlighting, etc. cross that line. Next, let's look at calculation aids, for which TEA has made a significant change for 2018-19. Remember that as of last year, calculators are required for all students taking math and science in grade 8 and above. For 2018-19, TEA stipulates grade 3 through 7 students receiving calculation aids as a support may only use basic 4-function calculators, not scientific or graphing calculators. Let's revisit that important change to the calculation aids support. The change applies to students taking STAR Math or Science in grades 3 through 7. If a student specifically is allowed an electronic calculator as a support, that calculator must be basic 4-function only. Scientific and/or graphing calculators, such as those shown to the upper right, are not allowed to fulfill this designated support. Simpler units like the one shown to the lower left are allowed and should be used in instruction and for STAR. TEA has made this change so that math instruction in these grades emphasizes math skills as opposed to just calculator skills. Now we move to the 3 designated supports that are available embedded in the online version of STAR. TEA has made no changes to these supports, but they have added some extra tools to STAR Online. For the appropriate testing situation, students taking STAR Online may be authorized to access the Calculator tool, which provides a virtual 4-function calculator, and the Dictionary tool, which provides online dictionary functions similar to what's found in a dictionary app or website. As for designated supports requiring TEA approval, our office will continue to provide a district-level approval request form for campuses to submit. That form includes information that will not go to TEA but will be used locally for tracking purposes. We will then submit TEA's approval request form with only the information required. Remember, approval of these requests is not guaranteed, although our office can make recommendations that increase the chances of TEA approval. Also, keep in mind that these supports carry additional guidelines from TEA, so anyone involved in delivering a designated support requiring TEA approval must be informed of those guidelines and follow them. Speaking of guidelines, Mansfield ISD will maintain its district-level accommodation time guidelines for all assessments in the 2018-19 school year. If an accommodation is removed from a student's IEP or other plan, the change can be implemented immediately on state assessments because there's no need to establish removal as routine and effective. However, MISD stipulates that any new accommodations added to an IEP or other plan require 4 weeks to meet the routine and effective guideline issued by TEA. Therefore, any change that adds an accommodation may be implemented on state assessments 4 weeks after the decision. The accommodation can be used in the classroom immediately, but if an administration of STAR occurs within that 4-week window, the new accommodation will not apply to the STAR administration. Typically, this district rule has the greatest effect on the first round of STAR in April, but the appropriate dates for all spring administrations of STAR are shown on this frame. Next, we address accessibility features, which are available to any student without the need for any special population status. Typing assistance for students taking Grade 4 writing online has now formally been added to accessibility features. Remember also that reading assistance on Grade 3 math is still available to all students, provided the assistance is minimal and requested by the student. Our office always recommends offering accessibility features on a case-by-case basis. Wrapping up this video is a brief description of the codes used to document accommodations on STAR answer documents. TEA has added some specific supports back to this field for tracking purposes. The appropriate bubble should be marked even if the student did not use the specific support. For online tests, the embedded supports are documented automatically based on the student's registration. If the student is approved for an additional support, such as extra time, that support must be documented using the ETS online system. We'll provide instructions on how to enter this information at a later time. Remember that the job of MISD assessment is to provide guidance and support to you, so feel free to contact us if you have questions. We also encourage you to make use of our informational resources on the web, including our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at MISD Assessment. We do our best to provide the most up-to-date information available regarding STAR testing. Thanks for watching.